One of the things that I've learned in working in across the various areas that I've worked in and working with various leaders is to be clear about the direction that you want to go, and then to have your alignment of your organization, your team ready to go, and then execute with deliberate speed to be able to get there. Any one of those things will cause you failure, delay in being able to accomplish the change objective that you're trying to accomplish.
It has been said many times, so many that it's become a cliche, even on this podcast, in fact, that change is the only constant in life. And if you are a leader or manager, particularly in a tech-driven business or environment, then it's undoubtedly something you've experienced in your career already. And if it's something that you've struggled with in terms of your leadership and management approach, then today's episode, the next in our mini series about things the AI can't do for you and tech leadership more generally, is aimed at you. So to help me cover this often complex subject around change management, transformation, digital or otherwise, I'm joined today by Kerry L Bass. Kerry is the founder and CEO of Potential to Reality Consulting, which is an expert in organizational transformation and change management. Kerry himself specializes in assisting government agencies, non-profits and commercial organizations in leading and supporting the kind of transformational and major organizational changes that we're talking about here. So his focus, his expertise and his experience is going to be incredibly valuable, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
Kerry, thank you so much for joining me today. Really looking forward to our conversation. We've got quite a few big topics to cover. I'm really keen to hear your points of view on some of those as well.
Great. Nice to meet you, David. And thank you for having me.
Likewise. Yeah. So I think we'll start the episode off by me really just handing over to you for a bit to introduce yourself to the listeners. Tell us all a bit about what you do, what your background is, how you've ended up doing what you do, and what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Sure. I like to consider myself a bit of a change junkie, and now that I've kind of gotten to this point in my career, I have the time to indulge myself, which can be a little bit of a dangerous thing. But I started out, I have kind of an eclectic background. I have been around most of the computer industry for a long time. I was hired by IBM because of my family mechanics background, and that was to be amongst the last of the key punch customer engineers. And for people that are very young, you may not remember or know that computer entry back in those days was actually with a 80-column card. And so I worked on the machines that were able to do that. And so I kind of grew with the computer industry, spent 20 years with IBM, but IBM was a great company to teach a lot of different things. And that was management, leadership, and quality. And that's kind of how I got on the path of where I am today. Had a eclectic career of being in ministry full time, working for government, and then consulting for the last, 15 years or so.
What an incredible time that must have been to work in computers as well. I mean, I guess that's why you've ended up being so interested in change as well. Because
exactly, and that's one of the techniques and skills that you need to master if you're going to be able to stay with technology, because it changes so fast that you have to be in a constant state of learning and change.
Absolutely, yeah. And quality management actually is something that I very rarely talk about, but I have had a bit of exposure to that myself in the aerospace world. I spent some time as a quality manager and did all the ISO 9001, all that kind of stuff as well. So that's an interesting one to balance against the change management program.
Absolutely. One of the things, and kind of the bit of the story to get of how I moved into that work is that the computer industry changed from a large hardware focus and the old big systems, and changed into more of software and services to be focused on delivery to our customers. And so my job as I went to headquarters with IBM was to be head of customer satisfaction, service quality, and skills deployment, because we had to change the skills of the workforce, particularly the field technical workforce, from hardware maintenance to more of a services and software view. And so I had to manage our ISO 9000 registration, and then learned a lot also after that. And that prepares you to be able to deal with quality from a lot of other different avenues too.
Well, absolutely. I mean, phrases like continuous improvement. Oh, you're bringing back memories now. But I mean, continuous improvement, that's effectively continuous change, isn't it? So
exactly,
I can really see how that's all aligned. Might not seem like it at first glance, but
one of the things that I just like to share with the audience is the definition that I've kind of adopted after becoming a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. My instructor, Dr. Watson, Gregory Watson, he lives in Finland, but he's originally from the United States, and he coined a definition of quality as the persistent pursuit of goodness tightly coupled with relentless avoidance of badness. And so that really resonated with me. And that's what charges me up to get me to do the things that I do even today, is that now I have a chance to look at pursuing goodness on a grander scale and try to see if we can avoid the badness and learn how to do better as we go along the way.
I really like that definition because it puts what is often a really complicated concept, deliberately so, I think, in some cases, to kind of obfuscate it and make it more difficult for people to get into the field. But it takes that complexity and actually reduces it to a very simple explanation that is nonetheless 100% accurate. And I really love stuff like
that. That's the reason I bought into it. It seemed really great to me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk a bit about some of the change programs and things that you've worked on and your experiences from that. And my first question for you there really is about, as leaders, as managers, as business owners, what are the most effective actions we can take to make sure that a change program is going to be successful in your experience?
Well, one of the things that I've learned in working in across the various areas that I've worked in and working with various leaders is to be clear about the direction that you want to go, and then to have your alignment of your organization, your team, ready to go, and then execute with deliberate speed to be able to get there. Any one of those things will cause you failure, delay in being able to accomplish the change objective that you're trying to accomplish.
And when you say deliberate speed, so that leads us into the next question, actually, because I think people often focus on making the change faster. Sometimes that's a deliberate choice. Sometimes, as in the world of technology and computers, as I'm sure you know better than I do, it's not really up to you. It's just the pace of the technology is evolving so quickly. You've got to keep up with it somehow. Do you think speed is the right thing to focus on, though? Is that something that should be a priority? And if so, what's the best way to achieve that?
Speed is a critical element for being able to be successful in change. One of the things that you think of is that people in organizations are, because they're made up of people, are resistant to change. And so in order to accomplish successful change, you have to move deliberately to get to where you're trying to go. And in the case of quality and organizations, and particularly leveraging technologies, you never actually end, but you get to milestones that allow you to accomplish the mission objectives, be able to be efficient and effective in delivering your services or provide the products that you're trying to provide. And while you're in that transition, your organization is in turmoil. And so what will happen is eventually the organization will settle. And if you have not accomplished the change that you want to accomplish within a relatively quick time frame, generally about 2 years or less, for major transformation, then the organization will settle for something along the way, or they'll revert back to what they knew before.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, because I guess one of the biggest challenges, isn't it, is getting, I guess they call it stickiness, don't they? It's getting whatever your change is to actually stick. And so you're saying that that's actually linked to how fast the speed at which you can achieve it.
Exactly. Like one of the techniques of change and transformation is you call it the burning platform, where basically you try to eliminate the capability of going back to what you were doing before. But if you're not accomplished putting the infrastructure or the techniques or the processes and systems in place of where you're trying to go to, then you end up stuck with something in between. And so therefore you really need to be quite deliberate about deciding where you're going to go, the best vision that you can of trying to get there, and then move quickly to get to that other side. Because while you're in that interim time, the organization and the people that are in it are looking for a way to be able to deliver and get through their daily activities the best way that they can.
And how do you see the role of leadership in all of that process as well?
Well, I think it's crucial. And quite frankly, the change method and the focus that I have, particularly on transformation, is on leader-led transformation. You have leaders at various places in the organization, but at the place or the focus of a change, a major change, that leader has to be the focus of it. And the actual initiator and manager of that change. You can get help from people like me, consultants and others, but a leader really cannot delegate responsibility for leading the change to anybody else. They have to be visible, and they have to be active in moving their team, their organization, the processes that they're responsible for toward the end result that they're trying to get to.
Talked about change a lot. You've mentioned transformation as well. For the benefit of the listeners, what's the difference between the two? Is it just terminology, or is there a distinct definition of both?
It really has more to do with the scale and focus. Transformation is really about a major change that happens in a specific time frame. Like you're going to change your business focus, you're going to launch a new product, new service. You need to most often a new leader is put in place, and that leader is responsible for forming the organization and getting it to where they're going to continue to move forward. Change, by the way, is a bit more of a standardized process, and you go through change regularly. For instance, you go through a change process to change your tools. Your organization may stay the same, but you have a new software product that you're trying to implement. And so there is a process that goes along that way. They're related, but the intensity and focus and scope is significantly different between transformation and then ongoing change management.
Okay, thank you. And of course, when we're talking about the word transformation, it's particularly in the context of this podcast, it's hard not to also talk about transformational leadership, which is
absolutely
a whole thread of leadership theory of its own, isn't it? Which is all about, the key themes within there are things like engaging with people, the communication aspect of leadership, and several of the core behaviors that I presume you're going to tell me are also very important to a successful transformation as well. And perhaps that's how the two have arisen.
Absolutely. And, and I think one of the key things about transformation and transformational leadership is kind of the title that you've adopted, leading with integrity. The core concept of a transformational leader is that they have to be really clear about who they are, and that there's a high level of fidelity between their expression of who they are and what they're trying to accomplish in the organization. You can say what you want to be, but who you really are comes out through your activities and your bottom line focus, particularly when you're under stress. And so my advice to leaders is to be really clear about who you are and where you're trying to go. And you need to be personally aligned with where you're trying to go. And if you're not there, if that's not your forte, then maybe you need to consider whether you're really the right person to lead this change, which is, kind of a dramatic thing, but really it has to do with the success and failure of the organization. And if you're the responsible for it, then that's the first decision that you need to make.
Yes, 100%. I think it speaks to another component of transformational leadership, which is the ethical emphasis as well, which we're talking about as though it's a new theory. It's actually probably the first of what I would call the modern theories of leadership. It was a very, very distinct break from ideas like transactional leadership and some of the even older theories like autocratic and stuff like that. So I think what was quite groundbreaking about transformational leadership was that ethical component. And that's exactly what you're talking about here, I think, is having the kind of the ethical awareness to know if you're not the right person to be leading that particular organization.
Absolutely. And, and I think one of the things that's confusing is that a lot of people equate ethics with, forgive me for sounding a syrupy niceness, so to speak. And so one of the most ethical things that I've heard recently, and forgive me if I get the attribution wrong, but I believe it was the CEO of Shopify that about 18 months ago or so told his team members and employees, and then it became public that he told his employees is that we're not a family. We are a high performing team. And so, what we expect is that you bring your A game to work with other high performing, members of your team. We're not here to meet your emotional and support needs and those kind of things. And that was kind of shocking to a lot of people. But I thought that actually was quite a high level of integrity. Because unfortunately, we have a lot of people that just automatically say things like, we're all one family. Well, that's not really true. Because, when the organization faces challenges, then sometimes you communicated an expectation that I can still be part of this organization. I can be family. Others will carry me along. When actually that's not what you mean at all. What you mean is that we work together very efficiently and effectively. And so I think it's really important for an organizational leader to be clear about what they mean and what does it take to be a member of this organization. What do we believe? What are we trying to accomplish? And how do we work together?
I hadn't heard that example, but I do really like it. And a couple of reasons for that. One is, yes, I agree with you. I think it's a show of integrity. It's showing a proper ethical understanding of the reality of the situation and then communicating it openly.
Yes.
Not to say that can't also still be done with a bit of empathy and kindness.
Well, absolutely.
Are separate things. But I think you're right. People get those things mixed up together, don't they? And perhaps that's because of a bunch of later leadership approaches that spawned out of transformational leadership, like the whole authentic approach, the servant leadership, and all of those things, which are perhaps more associated with the empathy side of it.
And I think even servant leadership is also that you need to know what's best for your people. And that's one of the things that, particularly when in transformation, I work with leaders and I ask them to evaluate their team because from an alignment standpoint, you need to know that your people are capable and willing to go on the transformation with you. And if you determine they're not, then you need to have that conversation with them and clearly get to that resolution of either they are going to go and they're capable and willing of making that change, or they're not capable or they're not willing. And we're now having to figure out what do we do to get you into a position of success, continuing success for what you want to do. To me, the one of the most destructive and difficult things that you can prevent with a transformation effort in particular is leaving the shore, so to speak. If you think of the old explorers leaving on their boats to go to a new place that nobody's ever been before and they're not going back, is to have somebody that really was not willing or capable to really make the journey, but they launched with the team anyway. And so that person then becomes unable to continue the journey. And so then you have to deal with that. And if that person has to leave the ship while you're still in transit, then that really affects the rest of the team, because they have thought that we're all going to get there together. And that will be a major detriment to the likelihood of success of the transformation.
Yes. Yeah. The temptation is to view it in kind of a no one gets left behind sort of thing,
Exactly.
Which is right to an extent, but it's in how you apply it, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I think it doesn't mean force everyone onto the boat and make them go with you. It means find out if they want to be on the boat to start with.
Exactly. Now, once you're on the boat, everybody is pulling together. You're pulling your fair share, and sometimes you may have to do double duty if other things come. We didn't anticipate that, but it's got to be done, and so we're all pitching in extra to do more.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Again, it comes down to communication at the end of the day, doesn't it? Well, at the beginning of the day, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the other reason I like the Shopify example that you've given there as well is I've always kind of disliked the use of the word family in a business setting, unless it is a family business.
Exactly.
Which is different. But I think, family means different things to different people, doesn't it? For some people, that means dysfunction. It means unpleasantness. It means things that you never had a choice about. Whereas for others, and often for the people saying we're like a family, they don't think about that. They think of it in terms of a nice thing and everyone's in it together.
Right.
But it can be quite toxic, I think, if you impose that set of values on a business.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, well, your family, I expect you to work for pennies.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's a great example. And the other thing that I talk about is the motivation of why someone should be on your team. If you have a high performing team that's not focused on empathy or support or those type of things, but it's based on success and promotion, then people expect to be compensated for the success that they have, kind of like a professional team. Professional athletes know that they have a limited shelf quality for their talent. And they know when their talent is not up to par, then it's an understood recognition that I will not be a part of this team going forward. But while I am a part of this team and a high performing contributing member, I expect to be compensated well for that. And so consequently, you have to keep that in mind. If you're wanting to have a high performing team, then you need to be prepared to compensate a high performing team and to lead them like a high performing team. You can't micromanage, you have to really play on the talents and the skills of the people that you build into the team. Otherwise, then you get in the way of being a successful leader of that team.
Absolutely. Well, as interesting as this discussion is, and we could go on for another half an hour just about that, I'm sure. Let's talk a bit more about some of the technological aspects. So there's a big elephant in every room right now, isn't there? Which is this kind of spectre of AI.
Yes.
How do you think it can help or hurt a company? And what impact do you see it having on businesses in the future?
AI is the next major disruptor of industry, and actually civilization at large. And it's been percolating for a while since we began the advent of the information technology age. But we're now got to that magic moment where the infrastructure and capability and the availability of these tools has now gotten to be ubiquitous enough that it will affect everything in the way that we do it. So I think regardless of what you think about it, you need to plan on doing it. It's just like the internet. If you don't have a strategy of how to use the internet by now, then it's very difficult to understand how you will be able to make a significant impact in society, whether you're dealing with it from a commercial business or a government entity or a not-for-profit services. If you are not capable of leveraging information technology in the way that it's available today, delivered through cell phones and computers and that sort of thing, then you're sorely behind. artificial intelligence is the next level of that. And that is being able to utilize all that data that we're now drowning in and being able to get knowledge out of that and being able to take action on it. So from that, you probably can see that I believe that AI actually has some beneficial aspects of what organizations can do. Being able to wade through all of the data and come up with knowledge and being able to apply that to our systems and processes, I think is going to be the great leverage, the great leveler, and interrupter of where we're going today. And so it won't matter as much about your bricks and mortar and all the other things. But if you can leverage your data and the data that's available to you better than your competition, or to be able to find the jewel to solve the problems that you're wanting to solve, that's great. The big danger is the fact that it's based on data that we have created, data that is there, and so even more so, that old computer axiom of garbage in, garbage out is that's the real danger. And garbage being bad data, wrong data, or biases in the data collection or in the development of the algorithms that these tools use. That's the big piece. And that's one of the things I spend a lot of time talking with leaders about, is how do we deal with the biases?
Yes. And what is the answer to that question is my next question.
Well, you know, one of the things that has come kind of as a consensus answer, and I've talking a lot to data scientists and others, and it relies back again on having a full diversity of people that are in the gathering of the data and the training of these systems and the development of these algorithms, because people really can't see their own biases. And so what you have to do then as a leader is that you have to understand that there's going to be natural bias there. And so you need to play on or leverage the diversity and inclusion and belonging efforts of your organization to be able to build a fully integrated or a fully diverse set of people, to be able to make sure that you're not missing any views, or to identify the biases that are there, which means that now you have to make sure you're really human and paying attention to what people are telling you.
Yeah, I had a really in-depth conversation with someone earlier this year about this from the recruiting point of view, because that's one of the applications right now where AI and kind of machine processing is really coming into play more in terms of like filtering job candidates and CVs and things before the shortlist gets to the interviewer. And so the question then becomes about unconscious biases, exactly as you say. And how do you account for those if the data going in is coming from a group of people, almost regardless of the diversity of that group of people? If they've all got unconscious biases of their own, they're without realizing going to enter those biases into the data, which goes into the algorithm.
Right.
And it's really interesting from an academic point of view, but it's also hugely important, I think, if we're ever going to solve that problem of diversity and inclusion in the workplace.
Absolutely. And, and I think that unfortunately, there is a lot of thought that, again, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a fluffy term that's not that important. And so, but this is a concrete example of why you need to pay attention to that, because it actually absolutely has a bottom line effect on the value, on the value you're creating and the quality of the products and services that you're developing and delivering. Which kind of gets me to the other point of that's why you need to have a robust quality management system. Not only just looking at the individual defects of a production line, but you need to look at the outputs and the trend lines of things like, as you mentioned, recruiting. Are we getting a truly robust view of qualified candidates that we're providing as an output for that, and because of these tools? And if not, what is the reason why? And so we need to now rely more on those higher level quality management tools and systems, and thinking to be able to ensure that these systems that we are now relying on so heavily are not producing bad output for us.
Indeed. Yeah, it's certainly a problem that's going to need a lot more work in the near future, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, recruitment it is important in a lot of respects, but it's also, I think, quite a focused and smaller scale example, isn't it? But I think one of the things I really liked in that conversation I mentioned before was the idea where you remove any personally identifiable information from that series. So the name goes, the address goes, even like the names of schools and things and what universities they've been to, because I mean, this one had never occurred to me until somebody said it, but that alone can be
absolutely
a bias introducing factor, can't it? Because,
yes.
And it was a very interesting one. I actually got a really horrible comment on YouTube about it as well. Somebody was kicking off about it being positive discrimination and how that's bad. And oh man, it's such an emotive issue, isn't it?
Well, I mean, and again, you have to be very purposeful about what it is that you're looking to do. For instance, if you want a very high performing team and you're looking for that kind of skills, then maybe you want to say, I want to look at the Oxfords and the Harvards and the MITs and Stanfords to be able to say those are the skill sets and the level of expertise and exposure that I want to have to be successful in the environment that I'm working on. If there's a reasonable reason for looking at those skills, then that's something that you can do. And that's what these tools are very good at doing. But at the other token is that maybe you want to look specifically on the other end. I want to improve or diversify the set of candidates that I have. I want to get people that come from community colleges or state universities, that have a highly diverse, environment, people that get under grants or financial aid or something like that, because, one of the other things is I'm now a doctoral candidate. I couldn't figure out what I want to do, so I'm still learning. But one of the things that I'm researching is looking at the effects of an organization. What effects or what are the things that help an organization be more socially conscious? And one of the pieces that the research is finding is the exposure of the CEO to poverty in their background. The more a CEO has had a diverse background themselves or overcome challenges, the more that they're open to their organizations and the businesses that they lead being able to draw from a greater diverse set of candidates and also have a mission to be able to be more socially conscious in the services and the products that they deliver.
Well, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it, when you think about it? The biggest problem there is finding a CEO who has that kind of background, because I imagine that's quite rare, isn't it, unfortunately?
Well, you do hear about a lot of them, and, and I've run across, some in my career and that they came from quite modest beginnings, and they were blessed to be able to have an opportunity, and they were able to capitalize on that, and that made the next step. But people bring their total package, so to speak, with them. But one last thing I wanted to bring up, and the flip side of why I'm really excited about AI is the capability of being able to concentrate and fix some of these pernicious problems that we have. For instance, imagine that if you turn loose the AI tool that says, I want to figure out what are the factors and how do I be able to improve or reduce poverty in a particular locale? What are the factors that best affect that? And how do I build a package of supports or opportunities to provide to the people there? Same tools can be able to filter through and see what's been most successful in those areas.
Yes. Yeah. I can see the opportunity there. Again, I mean, subject to us making sure we've got unbiased data going in, of course.
Exactly.
Back to the same problem, aren't we? But
right.
I mean, certainly the initial results will be interesting. And I'm sure I've read a few early experiments on that. I can't remember the name of the study off the top of my head. But I mean, there's a couple of quite high profile examples not on that specific problem, but of attempting to apply AI to things and it the bias it gets. I mean, there was quite a famous one with Twitter years back, wasn't there, where they basically let it loose on the internet as an AI bot, chat bot, and it was tweeting things that were extremely bad within days, I think.
Yeah. We taught it bad habits, right off the bat. Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
I
think it took it less than a week before it was spouting Nazi propaganda in tweets and things. So, I think that's quite a good illustration of the problem we're talking about, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the other quite funny one, which obviously isn't real, but it's kind of a thought exercise, is this idea that if ChatGPT is using the internet to train, how long will it be before ChatGPT is being trained by ChatGPT outputs and nothing else?
Yes.
And that's quite a funny one as well. But
the AI and chatbots take over, and they nobody else can get in, so they're talking to themselves.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then you get to the point of a really weird comparison, but like some of the problems with animal disease where they've been found to be traced back to being fed their own cells, effectively.
Right.
And it's the same thing, isn't it? We get BSE because we're feeding cows old cows.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
Anyway, weird things come into my mind sometimes. So let's move on a little bit. We talked to it as well about quality management, and I think we've kind of started to answer this already, but how do you see those principles of quality control, quality management remaining relevant given the rapid pace of change that we have in the world today?
Yeah, I spent a good bit of time doing that. And matter of fact, next month I'll be at the European Quality Conference to deliver a presentation on that. As where is quality going for the future? And my view, and the view that I've looked at from other experts, is that quality management will have to elevate our focus and our tools as automation and information technology has made it such that looking at the production line or the production floor is more automated, and there's less opportunity for an individual or a person to be able to have visibility and control in their process. It still, though doesn't mean that we don't need to look at the value and the capability of what we're producing. We have to look at it at a higher level. So I think that that's where the quality management principles and some of the core techniques will remain relevant. We will have to change our focus and targets and make them higher level, more at an organizational level and more at a societal level.
Interesting again. And as you mentioned there about not being able to necessarily walk the floor, as it were. So, I mean, the other big change we've seen is the rise of remote and hybrid working. So again, there's a complete change there, at least with office roles, for the most part. I mean, I guess the same question in that context as well.
Yeah, your Gemba walk has to be a lot more virtual and diverse.
Yeah. I have a really interesting question for you now, which is, what's the most important leadership lesson that you've learned in your career so far?
I think it goes back again to that discussion that we have on integrity, and also self-knowledge of making sure that you understand who you are and that you have internal integrity of knowing who you are and being true to that nature. Not saying that it's not possible to change your nature or to be able to augment and help your skills, but it's important for a leader to be clear about who they are and what they're trying to accomplish.
Self-knowledge is an interesting one to me, and weird coincidence, but I was out with a few friends the other night and we were talking about the difference between self-knowledge and self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And this came up because an old friend of ours that we haven't heard from in decades, he had this, he was known at the time as quite a selfish guy, and and people, he would never be the first one to buy the round at the pub. He'd always try and get there early, so he only had to buy one drink and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so there's a whole thing went back and forth with him, and he basically got to the point where his default position was, I know I'm selfish, I know that about myself, and I'm okay with it. And that to me is self-knowledge.
Yes.
Self-awareness, I think, is going a step further and saying, I don't like that, or that's not right, that doesn't fit my values, I'm going to do something about it. Absolutely. I think in the context of leadership, it's the same thing, isn't it? It's about understanding what people need from you. It's about understanding what the right thing to do is as well sometimes, and then reflecting on yourself, having self-knowledge to pick out what isn't going to fit that narrative or what you want to achieve or what is needed by the people you're leading, and then taking steps to do something about it, whether it is further learning or some coaching or just a conversation with people.
Absolutely. And, and I think that is key. And that's the expectation of a leader, is that you don't have to be everything to everyone. You are who you are, but your responsibility as a leader is to be effective in the role that you're in. And so if you have a skill, and I don't want to say deficit, but basically if your nature and your capability does not give you the best opportunities to succeed, it's your responsibility to fix that. And that means you need to get the education, or you need to even maybe bring in somebody, an accountability partner or somebody to say, look, I can be very transactional, which makes me look like a jerk from time to time, but I give you permission because I trust you to, when the jerk in me is coming out, I need you to pull on my coattail and say, you really don't want to say it that way. You maybe ought to consider these type of things to be more effective. And so we'll discuss that. So,
yeah, I really like that example. That's exactly the right solution, I think. And maybe this leads us into the next question, which is, what do you think is the biggest mistake that a leader can make?
I think again is the lack of alignment and drive to get to the other side. Some of the studies that I've looked at for transformation, even over the many years that I've been working in transformation and major change, it shows that the success rate really has not changed that much. And unfortunately, I believe it's because leaders try to delegate that change, and they want to kick it off, and then they refuse to stay engaged in it to ensure that it gets done quickly. And so I think the biggest issue is that leaders that kind of lose interest or lose visibility in that transformation, and then it just kind of loses energy and does not get to the point that it needs to get to quickly enough.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of sympathize with that myself, actually, having been almost on both sides of a change in that.
Yeah.
Not the same one, but so I've been the person who was delegated to because the leader didn't want to do it themselves or wasn't really interested, and trying to implement a change at that point when everyone knows, because they can visibly see the lack of engagement from the leader.
Yep.
That they're not bought into it. It's very difficult to get anyone else to buy into it at that stage.
Exactly.
People don't buy in, it's not going to happen, is it, ultimately?
Exactly.
Yeah. But then I've also been on the other side of it, the receiving end, if you like, where a change was trying to be imposed upon by a leader who they were bought into it. But I think what they'd got wrong on that occasion was it's the imposing it on you. And I think there's a big human nature aspect there, isn't there, about people not liking that feeling of having a change forced upon them instead of being involved in it. It's doing the change rather than it being done to you.
Exactly. One of the techniques and methodologies that I bought into, and it was actually an old professor of mine, is Dr. Robert Miles. And he developed a transformation technology, particularly for corporations. He called it accelerated corporate transformation. And to address that idea is that the leader is not necessarily responsible for designing everything to be done. The leader is responsible for setting the vision and pushing the organization forward. But then you need to line up the rest of your team, and they need to figure out what does this mean to me? If I'm going to accomplish this goal, then I need to have these type of resources and behaviors to accomplish it. And so therefore it's the responsibility of those members of the team to say, yep, I'm signed up to do what is required to make it happen. And so it's not the leader imposing a detail or, necessarily on me. It's I understand what I need to do to be successful where the leader says we're going to go.
Yeah, one aspect I think that's I've always found quite successful is the leader focuses on, as you say, it's the vision, it's the It's the what we want to achieve, why we want to achieve it, all of that kind of thing. And then the how we achieve it that's where it comes to the people who are actually going to do it.
Exactly.
And the more control and autonomy and empowerment you can give them in solving that problem, solving that question, I think the easier you'll find it to get them bought into the what and the why and all the other bits.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a couple of names already. I'll be curious to see if any of them pop up now. But for this question, feel free to speak anonymously if you'd rather not drop any names. But who would you say has been the best leader that you've personally worked for or with?
Well, I have a good friend, and he's still a kind of a longtime mentor, but he was my first second line manager with IBM. And we've worked together. Our relationship has kind of changed from me being his subordinate and, junior manager to now we're being peers. And he is I'll go ahead and say his name. His name is Richard Ledford. And so he and I stay in contact quite regularly. But he was able to institute major change in IBM and be able to bring the majority of the team along, but also hold people accountable. While I was working for him, I fired my very first person working with IBM as a first line manager, but it absolutely needed to be done. And so, he walked me through the process and made sure that I did it correctly and that I didn't waste time and did not get anger from myself. And I was able to manage the emotions of the other situation so that we can do this separation. This is not a good relationship between IBM and this individual. And here's why. And so here's why we need to get you to someplace you're going to be successful. And so that was what I learned from him. And I've seen him, also stand up to the organization and saying that, from on top and saying, yeah, we need to make some changes, but, the way we're going about it is wrong. And so I'm not going to participate. And so he actually refused to participate in a reduction in force. And, the personnel of the office actually threw a party for him in recognition of his willing to stand up for the troops. And so, so he's willing to take risks to push up, but he's also understanding of how we need to get stuff done as an organization. And so I continue to ask his advice from time to time. I just like to hang out with him anyway. So.
Well, that's always a good sign, isn't it? That the relationship's lasted for that long, even after you've probably both left the company where you met.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's always really nice hearing stories like that as well, I have to say. Mm-hmm. Okay. Potentially the most difficult question we've got for you today. We'll see. If you could go back in time to the start of your career, your first job even, what advice would you give to your younger self?
One of the things I think I probably would have told myself is to be more bold in going ahead with making decisions that I knew that I needed to go. And so, I think I probably, have talked myself out of things that I knew I wanted to do or needed to do. And so you end up having a waste of time and opportunity because you don't move in deliberate speed.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes, definitely. I think everyone can sympathize with the procrastination, the putting off the right thing because it's going to be difficult. That sort of scenario. Yeah.
Yep. and sometimes it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all of the above.
Yes.
Leadership Heroes.
Time's flying. We must be having fun. So last question for you. My favorite question is called Leadership Heroes. And the question is, if you had to pick one person, and they can be anyone you like, alive or dead, past or present, real or fictitious, who in your opinion would perfectly embody leadership, who would that be and why?
Well, I come from a very blended background of both ministry and business and other things. And so to me, though, the hero leader that comes to mind to me is Jesus of Nazareth. And, first of all, I understand that it's, God, you can't get a better example than that. And that's an easy one to pick. But what I really admired, though, is the focus of the transformation that was to be accomplished. I mean, think about it, creating a whole religion by never actually leaving a radius of 30 miles. And the reason that he was able to do that is that he mastered servant leadership and the empowering of his immediate team, the disciples. He gave them the knowledge and the ability and accountability to go out and do the rest of the job. So he never tried to do it for them. He empowered them, taught them, and then sent them out to do that job. And even when they failed along the way, he encouraged them and lifted them up and sent them back out again to be more successful. And so that's the hero of that I like from a mission perspective and a vision perspective, empowerment of your team, and also the example of a servant leader. And that while being a servant leader didn't mean that he was by any means a doormat for his team, but he was willing to give himself for his team.
He is a good example, and we've had him before, and I think a couple of things about him that I think make him a good example. Whether you believe in the religious aspect of it or not, it's such a good example of servant leadership. It's almost an extreme example, isn't it? Because literally made that ultimate sacrifice, if you like.
Yes.
Because he knew that was what was best for the people he was leading.
Exactly.
I mean, I can't think of a stronger example of servant leadership than that. I mean, you're literally doing the opposite of your own best interest.
Exactly.
Or the best interest of your people.
Exactly.
I think the second aspect of him that is really powerful to me as an example of leadership is the legacy aspect.
Exactly.
Because he was such an inspirational leader that his followers continued what he had taught. They continued to pursue his mission, his vision, long, long after he was gone.
Exactly.
And I think there are very few leaders that you can say the same of.
No. And to have a vision that's so powerful that it goes even beyond the aspect of the individual himself. What he's trying to accomplish is really just motivating.
Absolutely. Well, Kerry, it's been really interesting and entertaining talking to you today. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. The last thing I'll ask you, if any of the listeners would like to learn more about you and what you do, maybe get in touch with you, would you like to point them towards your website or anything else, really?
Yeah. My company is called Potential to Reality Consulting. It's a boutique management consulting firm. And, I work with, government. I spend a lot of time focusing on government, public sector, but also do commercial and not for profit. Our website is www.makingitreality.com, and info@makingitreality.com is probably the best way to get in touch with me, and be happy to talk with you about how we can help. And if you'd like to talk about other things too, about your beliefs and how to make the world a better place, I'm always interested in that conversation.
Lovely. Well, I'll make sure those links go in the episode description as well, so everyone can click on the buttons instead of having to remember words and type and stuff. So it's always helpful. Well, that's it from me then. Thank you again so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having me.
Well, if you've ever struggled with a change program at work, hopefully this episode has proved useful for you. You've got some great ideas and tips and practical things that you can put forward into your next change program. Kerry, thank you again so much for your time and for sharing your stories and expertise. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure the listener does as well. Listener, if you would like to learn more about Kerry and what he does, perhaps get more information about his company, I've put the website address in the episode description. So please do click on that, visit his website and get a bit more information. If leadership itself is something that you need some support with, don't forget to visit www.leadernotaboss.com, and I'll be more than happy to help you as well if I can. And that's nearly all I've got time for today. This is the penultimate episode in our series about what the AI can't do for you and tech leadership. Join me again tomorrow as it's Christmas week. We're doing extra episodes this week. So tomorrow, as I say, the last episode in this mini series about technology leadership, and I'll be joined by Sonia Kuto. We'll be getting the founder's perspective on technology leadership and how to do that successfully. So I hope you'll join me again for that tomorrow. Another really great conversation. And then this weekend, we have our Christmas bonus episode. So we've got an extra episode about job hunting and how to do that successfully, since it seems relevant to the potential New Year's resolutions that are only a week or so around the corner. And then on Sunday for Christmas Eve, we have the Leading with Integrity Christmas special. Really looking forward to that. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. Talk to you soon. Until then, be a leader, not a boss. Oh, and good luck with wrapping those Christmas presents, by the way.